We've made a lot of videos about mixing vocals over the years, but if you're not in the mood to sit through hundreds of them, which I don't blame you, here are the 5 most important vocal mixing tips. These 5 tips are fundamental for mixing professional vocals, even though most are rarely covered or explained well. Now, once you know them, you can decide if you want to follow them exactly or deviate from them to create a unique sound. So starting off, let's cover vocal LUFS compared to instrumental LUFS. So when mixing, I'd recommend that you create the following routing. Route each instrument group to a bus. So there's a bass bus, a drum bus, etc. The lead vocal should stand alone, so all doubles and harmonies can go to a bus, but the lead vocal should have a distinct bus in which the lead comp and all of its auxiliary effects should be routed. Then, all instrument buses and the backing vocals could be routed to an instrumental bus. Aside from giving you a lot of control, this setup lets you measure something incredibly important: the LUFS of the instrumental compared to the LUFS of the lead vocal. In the majority of popular mixes, the lead vocal has the same loudness as the instrumental. Whether they did this on purpose or not, mixers of previous decades found this to be the most optimal balance between the lead vocal and the instrumental, and what resulted in the most favorable response from listeners. So, once you've created this routing, use LUFS meters to compare the loudness of these two aspects. Try to get them to match as closely as possible. Then, if you want the vocal to sound slightly below the mix, lower its level slightly. If you want it to sit on top of the mix, you raise it slightly. As I mentioned, you're not obligated to follow this exactly, but knowing this relationship is crucial to determining whether you'd like your vocal to sit above or below the mix. So here's the setup with matched loudness, the vocal slightly below, and the vocal slightly above.
She reminds me of a cold, dark summer's night when I'm staring at the lights, and I'm hoping that there could be something more here, but she's looking the other way, and I'm wishing I could be something that she could hold on to, but tonight here.
Next, let's cover why a vocal sounds unclear. So aside from overall loudness, this is the primary reason it can be difficult to discern the lyrics of a vocal performance. The vocal has 3 formants, or areas responsible for vowel and consonant articulation. The most prevalent is between 3 to 5 kHz. Meanwhile, roughly 200 to 400 Hz is the primary masker of 3 to 5 kHz. In other words, if 200 to 400 Hz is too high in amplitude, either in the vocal or on the surrounding instrumentation, the vocal's 3rd formant is going to be covered. In turn, it's hard to understand the vocal performance, and it'll sound unclear or muffled. Lastly, 200 to 400 Hz is an incredibly populated range. Either it's the area of the fundamental frequency for a lot of instruments, or it contains a low-order harmonic or an overtone. So, if the vocal sounds unclear or muffled, odds are it's due to this range. So to fix this, you could find instruments with too high of an amplitude in this range and subtly attenuate. Instead of doing this aggressively to one instrument, spread out the attenuation amongst multiple tracks to make it sound more natural. Additionally, you could subtly attenuate this range in the lead vocal. Lastly, you could subtly boost the 3rd formant in the vocal. Now keep in mind that other processors like reverb, saturation, delay, and other additive forms of processing can emphasize 200 to 400 Hz, so these processors may also need to be adjusted if you're having this issue. Take a listen to how affecting these ranges alters the perceived clarity of the vocal.
She reminds me of a cold, dark summer's night when I'm staring at the lights, and I'm hoping that there could be something more here, but she's looking the other way, and I'm wishing I could be something that she could hold on to, but tonight here.
Next up, let's cover how to control a vocal's dynamics. So although the expected vocal sound changes from genre to genre, the most popular is an upfront and detailed vocal. Peak down compression with makeup gain is the most common way to achieve this sound, but it can often sound overprocessed due to the distortion in the ADSR changes that it causes. So the good news is that a vocal and any other instrument can have its quieter details amplified without first attenuating peaks. For example, if I use the Oxford inflator, notice that the lower amplitude aspects of the signal are boosted while the peaks aren't attenuated until they reach nearly 0 dB. The Omnipressor does something similar, as does parallel compression. Lower amplitudes are boosted, while peaks are left alone for the most part. By blending subtle to moderate peak down compression with maximization, or the amplification of quieter details without affecting peaks, we can easily achieve that upfront sound while avoiding unwanted artifacts or a noticeably processed vocal.
She reminds me of a cold, dark summer's night when I'm staring at the lights and I'm hoping that there could be something more here, but she's looking the other way and I'm wishing I could be something that she could hold on to, but tonight here.
Make mixes that accurately translate what you hear in your head without years of practice or expensive plugins. Seriously though, when people work with us, they get results. That's why major industry professionals like Keith Urban's producer Aaron Schurz works with us, Grammy Award-winning AJ Castillo, Billboard #1 charted artist Megan Lindsay, Grammy Award-winning artist Toulis, The Voice singer Cody Ballou, Grammy-nominated producer Tyler Kane, Warner Music artist Ricky Young, and the list goes on. Why waste your time creating mixes that look like this when you can instantly fix the problem by working directly with professionals who have already done what you're trying to do? Watch this entire video, and at the end, learn how you can start making mixes that accurately translate what you hear in your head. Next up, let's talk about how to mix vocal doubles. So as you probably know, doubling a lead vocal is a great way to make the lead sound fuller and more impressive. Small variations in timing, pitch, amplitude, the frequency response, and more blend in with the original performance, causing a more complex sound. There's a caveat though. Sibilants and aggressive consonants ruin the illusion of the two or more performances coming from one vocalist. Although small timing differences are beneficial, the shortness or percussive nature of sibilants and consonants gives the listener a cue that these are two separate vocals if they're out of time. For that reason, heavily de-essing BGVs and doubles is a good idea if you want them to blend in with the lead vocal. Alternatively, you could attenuate high frequencies with an EQ or a dynamic EQ. Furthermore, amplifying the mids can help them blend by accentuating the areas with the greatest differential in pitch, in turn, causing a very subtle chorus effect. So let's take a listen to a double in which the sibilance is aggressive enough to indicate separate performances, and then that double de-essed heavily to help it blend in.
She reminds me of a cold, dark summer's night when I'm staring at the lights and I'm hoping that there could be something more here, but she's looking the other way and I'm wishing I could be something that she could hold on to, but tonight here.
Last up, let's cover adding temporal effects without losing intelligibility. So temporal effects like reverb and delay are needed to add space, thicken a vocal, or add a creative sound. However, they can quickly decrease the vocal's intelligibility. Now, there are two main ways to add as much reverb or delay as you want without washing out the vocal. The first is ducking. Now, some reverb and delay plugins include ducking, which attenuates the beginning of the effect to allow the vocal's transient to come through. As a result, the vocal retains its clarity, then the effect comes in soon after. But using plugins that have a built-in ducking function severely limits what you can use. So here's how to duck any reverb or delay plugin. Set up the temporal effect on an auxiliary track or a parallel track. For example, say I want to use Logic's stock reverb plugin, I'd insert it on the aux channel, dial in the settings that I want, and then I'd insert a compressor. With the compressor, I'll sidechain the original drive vocal track. With the compressor triggered by the drive vocal, I'll attenuate the reverb for the vocal's attack and decay. This will reduce the amplitude of the reverb or delay for that initial period, letting the vocals transient through. The second method is to use EQ after the temporal effect. By reducing masking frequencies, again 200 to 400 Hz, the effect interferes with the vocal's clarity less than it normally would. But the best sound comes from a combination of these two methods. So let's listen to high levels of reverb without ducking and EQ shaping, and then high levels of reverb with ducking and EQ shaping. Notice how even though the reverb is way too aggressive, ducking and EQ significantly helps the vocal stay intelligible.
She reminds me of a cold, dark summer's night when I'm staring at the lights and I'm hoping that there could be something more here, but she's looking the other way and I'm wishing I could be until but tonight here.
Make mixes that accurately translate what you hear in your head without years of practice or expensive plugins. Seriously though, when people work with us, they get results. That's why major industry professionals like Keith Urban's producer Aaron Schurz works with us, Grammy award-winning AJ Castillo, Billboard #1 charted artist Megan Lindsay, Grammy award-winning artist Toulis, The Voice singer Cody Ballou, Grammy-nominated producer Tyler Kane, Warner Music artist Ricky Young, and the list goes on. Why waste your time creating mixes that look like this when you can instantly fix the problem by clicking the link in the description and working directly with professionals who have already done what you're trying to do? We've helped 2,346 clients make mixes that accurately translate what they hear in their heads without years of practice or expensive plugins, and it'll work for you too. Click the link in the description and get direct access to us for custom analog mastering, one-on-one mixing feedback, in-depth mixing and mastering courses, and our thriving community. Click the link in the description now to start making mixes that accurately translate what you hear in your head.